Hello, everybody. Welcome into the FantasyPros Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined as always by Scott Bogman and by Pat Fitzmaurice. Fellas, we are talking some Dynasty running back rankings and tiers on today's show. We are into late June, so only a couple more months of this real heavy Dynasty focus that we've got going on here. And then, of course, we as a team will be transitioning into in season here. I've said it a bunch this offseason, but it does feel like the offseason just goes faster and faster every year. I guess that's what the NFL wants as they take over more and more of the calendar. But just a few more months here before we really get into the redraft stuff. Fitz, how you doing?
Doing well, and it can't go fast enough for him because the heat has arrived here in the upper Midwest in the Chicago area. I know I can't complain too much with Bogman here because he's a Houston guy and he gets this like 8-9 months out of the year. But man, I'm just I'm ready for the 60-degree fall days and football.
How's the weather where you are, Boggs?
I mean, I don't go outside. Yeah. I'm a vampire now, so it's all good to me, but it is hot. I do think it's funny because I'll complain about the cold, and I don't have any business complaining about the cold compared to you guys, right? But I'm not used to it at all. You guys aren't used to the heat, or at least I know Fitzy up in the north is not used to the heat. And that's my cousin. When I moved here to Houston, she was like, "Are you used to the heat yet?" And I was like, y'all remember where I'm from? I moved here from Arizona.
Yeah.
It's the people move because the heat will kill you. So yeah, it's hot, but being a vampire helps. Stay inside where the AC is. So hopefully no hurricanes and power stays on. Yeah. That's what we want.
We've had a couple 100-degree days last week, like 2 or 3 in a row where we hit triple digits, and then the morning after one of them, I was wearing a sweatshirt while walking my dog. So it definitely fluctuates.
You're in the Denver area?
Yeah, just north of Denver. So not in the mountains where it would, remain kind of colder, but it can get hot. The sun is really the thing in Denver. Is you're so close to it that you feel it, and you get burned more easily. Which I learned my first winter. I got burned in like January out here. My first winter out here, and I was like, I didn't think this was possible. They're like, you're so close to the sun that it does.
You're standing right next to it.
I love Denver weather though, honestly, because it's so dry and you don't get that humidity, and that's the thing I'm most happy to not be on the East Coast for anymore is that humidity. So
y'all with the snow, I don't have to shovel this deadly heat out of my driveway. So
it melts fast though when it's sunny out. The next day. Okay. So at least in the mountains, different story. But I quite like it. Let's jump into the show here. Like I said, Dynasty running back rankings and tiers. All of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. You can also navigate to our Dynasty rankings from there as well. We're going to go through tier by tier as we get deeper in. Some of the tiers are bigger, so we'll kind of pick out a few names here and there, maybe cut it into some sections to kind of more easily navigate rather than reading, 20 names at a time. But I'll kind of run through the names quickly in each tier before we dive in. And we're going to take this very casually. We're just going to kind of go through and react to the names that are in these tiers. You guys have your own rankings, of course. We're going to go based on what the expert consensus rankings are showing, and we'll kind of highlight where you guys agree, disagree, who's too high, too low, who we think is in the right tier, but we could see them moving a tier by this time next year, all that sort of stuff. So we'll start at the very top, as we always do for these episodes, with tier 1. There are 4 names in this tier. It will surprise nobody who the first 3 names are, and that's Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Ashton Jeanty. The 4th name in there, I don't think it'll surprise most people. Maybe if you are really focusing on age as an important factor, it might surprise you. Saquon Barkley, of course, much older than the other 3 names in this tier, but also coming off of an incredible season. We know the situation he's in. He's still very awesome. So again, that's Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ashton Jeanty, and Saquon Barkley. Fitz, what's your initial reaction to hearing those 4 names?
No surprise, really. I have Bijan, Gibbs, and Jeanty in the top tier. I don't have Barkley in, and it is because of the age thing. First 3 guys are awesome and young, have their whole careers in front of them, basically. And, Barkley is well into his career, and 3 years from now is probably not a guy we're going to be counting on to have much of a dynasty window left. So that's why he's on the next tier for me. But obviously, if we're talking about redraft, he's my RB2 for this year behind Bijan. So still a great asset to have. No knock on Barkley. He's phenomenal. But I just have those other guys higher because of the age difference.
And Bogman, you famously are less worried about age because you play for a shorter window. So I would imagine that you not only have Saquon in this top tier, but maybe even higher than 4.
Yeah, I have him at 3. And honestly, however you want to view Saquon, I completely understand. The dissenting opinions on him all have merits, right? Like for me, it's look, he's coming off one of the better running back seasons we've ever seen behind one of the best offensive lines we've seen, and not a whole lot has changed here in Philly, right? Specifically offensively. So, do I expect him to have another huge year? Of course. If he's healthy, he's going to have a huge year. But there's a lot of people that use this 400 touch marker, right? From last season plus the playoffs, the track record of guys having that type of touch production the next season, they usually get hurt or miss an extended period of time. So I understand all the views on Saquon Barkley. He's not even 30 yet. He's coming off one of the better running back seasons. Nothing has changed in Philly. I got to have him up there. I think 2 more awesome seasons could be in store, but Fitz is right. After that third year, once you start getting to that 30, that is ancient for a running back. So beyond that, fine, but my window is usually typically within 3 years.
And just to clarify, I don't know that if you said this and I missed it, I apologize, but it is Ashton Genty that you have behind him. Obviously, Bijan and Gibbs, There's no debate by anybody really that those are 1 and 2 in terms of dynasty running back rankings. With Genty, Bogman, like it almost feels silly to ask this question because we all, I'm pretty certain, are going to agree on the answer. But is there any case to be made for, like, as much as we like him as a prospect, he is a rookie who hasn't done it and therefore maybe shouldn't be in tier 1 right off the bat?
Yeah, of course. I think that, we have overestimated so many rookies that we think are generational type of prospects and, just have not worked out, or just even good prospects that haven't worked out. Right. So yeah, we could easily be overviewing Genty. I think that you have to take that within the realm of possibility as a possible outcome when you draft any rookie. But I would say he's pretty well equipped. If we're going to miss on someone, I doubt that it's Ashton Genty.
I asked you guys this before, and I want to get both of your answers again. And this was several months ago I asked you this. What percentage chance would you give Ashton Genty of ever being Dynasty RB1 at any point in his career? Bogman?
60%.
Fitz?
Yeah, 60% is pretty good. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I'd say over 50%. The workload is enormous. Everyone knew it was coming and it still worked. Like he has his can't miss as they come, but there are can't misses that have whiffed. So no one is flawless. Last
question on this tier, Fitz. I mean, we don't really need to spend time on Bijan and Gibbs because it's so obvious. Between those two, did you give any consideration to Gibbs as number 1, or was it really no choice at all? Bijan is still the clear number 1.
Yeah, Bijan, freed from the constraints of Arthur Smith as his play caller after his rookie year. I mean, he just thrived with Zach Robinson as his new offensive coordinator, like basically 1,800 yards, 15 touchdowns. It was all great. And it just shows up on, like, he and Gibbs are both phenomenal players, but Robinson shares less of the workload. And I do worry a little bit about Gibbs losing Ben Johnson as a play caller. Not all that much, because like we know the passing game productivity is going to be there for Gibbs, and he's just a terrific player. I think Montgomery is the guy whose workload we have to worry about if there is some sort of reduction. But like, no small thing that the Lions have been 5th and 1st in scoring the last 2 years. So there have been plenty of touchdowns to go around for both Gibbs and Montgomery. And I do expect somewhat of a scoring drop-off for the Lions without Ben Johnson. So I don't think Gibbs gets another 20 touchdowns, but 15 is still pretty doable.
You can level up your fantasy football draft prep with FantasyPros Mock Draft Simulator. Complete realistic mock drafts in minutes without waiting between picks. Tailor your mock drafts to your league's specific settings, including roster configurations and scoring systems. Receive instant feedback and draft grades to refine your strategy and gain a competitive edge. Prepare confidently and dominate your draft with the Mock Draft Simulator at fantasypros.com/mock. Yeah, Bogman, quickly, just kind of similar thoughts for you in terms of Bijan versus Gibbs.
I mean, come on. You know that, look, anyone in this tier can be number 1, but did I consider Gibbs over Bijan? Of course I didn't. Come on.
That is pretty much what I assumed. Let's go to tier number 2 here. It's 4 names again, so going from running backs 5 to 8. Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall. It is a consensus 5-5-5. It's an RB5, RB5, RB5 across the board for Achane. The other guys gets into the order is a little different between the two of you. And in fact, both of you have other names that would be in this tier that aren't currently in this tier by consensus. Let's save those names for when we get to them later on in the tiers and just focus on these 4. But of these 4, Fitz, is there a guy that you feel strongly about is too high or too low?
I don't know that I really feel strongly about anyone in this. Like, I'm a little worried about Breece Hall just because Aaron Glenn has talked repeatedly of using a multi-way backfield. So you think Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are probably going to be involved based on what Aaron Glenn has been saying. Also, like I know there have been some people posting on Twitter about like Justin Fields having a high dump off rate, but like Justin Fields doesn't throw that many passes. There was a year in Chicago where his running backs, including his fullbacks, combined for like 46 receptions. I think that was in 2022, and I want to say Justin Fields had 15 starts that year. So I worry about the Breece Hall pass catching output because that is a big part of the appeal with Breece Hall. Like in the right system, he could give you Alvin Kamara type passing, type receiving numbers, I should say. But I don't think that's going to happen with him in the Jets. So while I like Hall, I'm not in love with his current outlook on the Jets.
On Hall, sticking with you quickly, Fitz, do you see the upside case still? Like, even if you are more concerned about the downside case? Because I feel like when I'm looking at the names outside of tier 1, I feel like I'm not saying that he is the guy that I most think could jump into tier 1, but I feel like he has as good a chance as a number of players if he kind of puts it together in the way we expected early in his career. Let's say Fields at least opens up those rushing lanes and he's a lot more effective and the offense scores enough touchdowns that he gets a lot more of them. He's still really young. He's only 24 years old. Like, do you see that upside case to paint with Breece Hall at least, or are you mostly just focusing on the downside?
I do. I mean, if Aaron Glenn was maybe not playing it straight with us and Breece Hall gets a much bigger percentage of the workload than we were looking at. And I really like the direction of the Jets offensive line, which could be like one of the better young offensive lines in the league. Now they've added Armand Membu to already a pretty good core with Vera Tucker and some of the other guys. Yeah, there is an upside case to be made for sure. Like Breece Hall is really good. I know he didn't pop off with the efficiency numbers last year, but we know he's like one of the, 5-6 most talented running backs in the league.
Breece Hall, Bogman, is he somebody, I mean, you've got him roughly ranked in line with where he's at, kind of back part of tier 2, but is he somebody that you are interested in going after in dynasty leagues right now based on this ranking, or, kind of a buy, sell, hold type of player for you? Where would he fall?
I would rather trade for him right now because I feel like his value is diminished a little bit, and we have heard negative things like Fitz mentioned, like Aaron Glenn saying how they're going to use more running backs. But the good thing is I feel like there's 2 good ways for Breece Hall to get back to the guy that we thought he was a couple seasons ago. Number one, it's just the meritocracy of the running back position, right? Like Tony Romo taught us, and the reason why Christian McCaffrey is dealing with all these injuries now and why Saquon had 400 touches last year. If a guy is so much better than everybody else on the field, it's so hard to take him off the field as a head coach. Most games are tight. You want your best players out there every single snap they can possibly physically take in a tight game. So I think Breece Hall is going to get more of this workload than Aaron Glenn even anticipates because he's so much better skill-wise than Braylon Hall and Isaiah Davis, who I both like. I like both those guys. But also, if he doesn't, or if he has another injury plagued year or whatever, he's a free agent next season, and he can go and plug and play, I feel like, anywhere. I think he has a skill to go and be a big-time contributor anywhere he goes. So I think he either, performs well in New York and earns himself an extension there and is a big part of the offense, or he's kind of him-haw again or banged up again this season and he goes somewhere else in a better offense already.
Fitz, I know this, kind of playing devil's advocate will maybe fall on deaf ears for you because you are such a big fan of this player, but is there any reason to be a little nervous about Devon Achane being in the top 5 in Dynasty just because of how different his production looks when Tua Tagovailoa is on the field versus off the field, and it's still impossible to remove, like, from the back of our minds the history injury, the history of injuries with Tua, and that any hit could be his last, and all of a sudden this offense falls apart?
Yeah, and his numbers were pretty terrible while Tua was out with a concussion last year. And I think the Tua preservation plan that was in effect when he came back from that concussion was a big reason we got such a good year from Achane last year. Like, his receiving numbers went through the roof, like late in the season over the second half when Tua was back. Like, we basically saw an Alvin Kamara type of season, vintage Alvin Kamara numbers from Achane, because he doesn't, like, the chances of him getting 1,000 yards, not great, because he only averages about 12 carries a game. Mike McDaniel does not want to beat him into the ground as a runner, but he had 75 catches last year. That was kind of part of the plan of Tua getting rid of the ball real quickly, and it really benefited Achane. It really benefited Jonnu Smith. It did not benefit Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And so we saw their numbers nosedive. I just wonder if they sort of reintroduce verticality into the Miami offense this year, and that maybe takes away from some of the receiving numbers for Achane. So yeah, I don't think he's completely foolproof. And to be honest, like, I'm probably not going to have a lot of him in redraft this year, because I think he might be a little too expensive relative to what the ceiling could be.
Bogman, I want to wrap up this tier by pitting you and Fitz against each other, because you guys basically have Bucky Irving and Jonathan Taylor, who are the middle two names in this tier in consensus. You guys basically have them flipped. Fitz has Bucky Irving at 6 and Jonathan Taylor at 10. Bogman, you have Jonathan Taylor at 6, Bucky Irving at 9. So almost exactly flopped there. Make the case for why you have Jonathan Taylor higher than Bucky Irving.
I mean, they're both very good. And by the way, I have this tier plus probably the next tier more together, right? I think the RB2s are fairly deep. I think running back as a whole with this new class coming in is fairly deep. So I have a little more expansion on this group than most people. But for me, it's just the average points per game and the fact that he can carry a huge workload, right? Like, he's not the biggest contributor in the pass game. I understand that, but this is a dude that could easily be RB1 if they get a good quarterback in here and he stays healthy. There's a lot of ifs. I just see, the next couple seasons being still huge workload seasons for JT. I don't know that Bucky ever gets much more than 250 touches. That's right around the number he got last year. That's about his high in college as well. And Bucky's awesome. He's a lot like Achane in the fact that I don't think either one of these guys has to have 20, 25 touches a game to have an impact, and that will extend his career a little bit longer. But I think you miss that peak that JT has had and can continue to have if he stays healthy.
So Fitz, what's the other side? What's the case for Bucky ahead of Taylor?
Well, first of all, I'm going to demand some acknowledgement for not being a University of Wisconsin homer and overdoing it with my ranking of Jonathan Taylor.
This is it. This is the one.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, JT is phenomenal. I think he's one of the best pure runners in the league, but he has had 3 ankle injuries over the last 3 years that have cost him, I think, 8 games. He's had fewer than 20 catches each of the last 2 years, and I don't think there's a lot of pass catching potential with either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones at quarterback. And Dynasty leagues are generally PPR leagues, so the PPR format is not really JT's friend. So, and then with Bucky Irving, like, it seems like some people are reluctant to buy into Bucky because we only have a 1-year sample. And we have an even smaller sample with Bucky being the Buccaneers' lead running back. That didn't happen till later in the year. But that sample of Bucky being the lead guy, that's what has me so bullish on him. There were only 7 games where Bucky played more than half of the Buccaneers' offensive snaps last year, including their one playoff game. In those 7 games, Bucky averaged 127.3 yards from scrimmage per game and had 6 touchdowns. Like, Bucky Irving was so good last year, man. 5.4 yards per carry, 3.93 yards after contact per carry, the most of all running backs with 60 or more rushing attempts last year. Forced 62 missed tackles last year. That ranked 8th. And all the running backs who forced more missed tackles than Bucky Irving last year had more carries than he did. Like, he was fantastic last year, and I do not want to undersell what he did.
Now, Bucky is great. I mean, that's why I have this group is so deep. I think any of these guys could end up as a high end RB1. There's a lot of good running backs in the league right now.
Let's move to tier 3, which Bogman, you've already said you kind of have some of these guys in there. And Fitz, you have not one, but 2 of these guys actually inside your top 8. So they would belong in tier 2 if we were just going off of your rankings. It goes, I'll read through the names quickly, from RB9 to RB18. Omarion Hampton, James Cook, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Travion Henderson, Christian McCaffrey, Quinshawn Judkins, and Derrick Henry. I'll start right at the top with Omarion Hampton. Both of you guys have him inside the top 8. Is this, in your opinion, Fitz, a case of consensus just hasn't quite caught up? I mean, we're a couple months removed from the draft, so you wouldn't think that as much. Do you think that we're going to see Hampton inside that top 8 by the time maybe we get to the end of August? Or do you think that he's here for a different reason in terms of the consensus ranking and you guys just happen to be more bullish?
I don't think we'll see him there at the end of August. I think he'll need to clearly surpass Najee Harris in the pecking order before that happens. But he's just such a phenomenal prospect. And he goes to a really good system, a system that's really going to be run heavy, obviously, with Greg Roman in charge. Like, they were still the 10th run heaviest team in the league last year, even though J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both got hurt at different times. So, like, the only thing that worries about me with Hampton is that Greg Roman does kind of run things at a pretty slow pace, and there are not a lot of running back targets in Greg Roman's offense. So I guess I have the same sort of concern that I have with Jonathan Taylor, that maybe you don't get great contributions as a pass catcher from Omarion Hampton, even though he showed at North Carolina that he is really good in that facet of the game. But I think I'm above consensus with the rankings of pretty much every highly drafted rookie running back in this class, just because I want to tip my hat to the class. Like, this is a phenomenal class, and I think a lot of these guys are going to pan out and be like staples of the top 20 dynasty running back rankings for a long time.
Sticking with Hampton here, Bogman, you also have him inside your top 8. I mean, most dynasty leagues are PPR, so if pass catching is a concern, not as a player, but just in terms of the offense that he's in, maybe that should knock him down a bit. What do you think?
I mean, I don't care. Just give me touches, right? And this is a guy that had 282 in 2023 in North Carolina and 319 last season. And he is so much. I trust my gut in the fact that I've seen so much Najee Harris, and I've seen him be such a average running back in the NFL, right? Like, he has good moments, he has really bad moments. He's a fine running back, right? But Omarion Hampton is a very highly skilled, violent running back that can carry a full workload. And I think, what helps me out with the lack of pass catching is the fact that he is going to be most likely one of the leaders in rushing touchdowns every single season, especially in a high-paced rushing or a high percentage rushing offense that Jim Harbaugh does run. It is slow, like Fitz mentioned, but I just think you get down to the goal line, you have to expect Hampton crashing through to score. So I think he's going to be a multiple double-digit touchdown scorer throughout his career in LA, which is hard to come by. So I think he makes up for the lack of passing with his size.
One of the interesting things with the running back position as it currently stands is there are definitely names that I will be inherently higher or lower than consensus on, but there's not a lot of names where I go into it saying, I want to make sure I'm higher than consensus on this guy. One name that it does look like you kind of had that approach with, Fitz, is another rookie, Travion Henderson, who is 15th in ECR. You have him as RB8. So that is much higher than ECR. Bogman is in line with ECR, so you are much higher than him as well. He's right behind Hampton for you in what would be a tier 2 player if we're going based on the way the tiers are lined up right now. What is it about Henderson that has you so interested in being above consensus?
I'm such a believer in the talent, and I think his game is going to translate really well to the NFL. Strikes me as a guy who, like Jahmyr Gibbs, doesn't need massive touch counts to be highly impactful. I think Henderson is going to put up really good receiving numbers throughout his career, and they're going to want him on the field in passing situations because he's also a really good pass blocker. I believe in him. I think he's quickly going to establish himself as the primary running back, not the only running back used in New England, because he's not cut out to be a 350 touch guy a la Saquon Barkley. But, Henderson, like Gibbs, I think is going to be very impactful in a sort of part-time role. Not part-time. That diminishes what he's going to be as, a guy who's going to
a
have
non-workhorse role.
Right. Yes. Good way to put it.
Bogman, are there any other names in this group that stand out to you that you think are too high or too low? It's an interesting group of names, but there aren't a ton of discrepancies in terms of the rankings.
Yeah, too high or too low. I don't know. I would say that the way that I tier it is I have outside of, I have 5 through 14 in a tier. That's how I see it. And that's how I kind of see the secondary running back on your team, even in Dynasty. It's like I want one of, Achan, of course, Taylor, Hall, Hampton, Irving, Williams, Cook, Walker, Brown, and Jacobs. So some of the rookies I have in the next tier, just like I want to see it first. Travion Henderson is a guy, obviously, I really like, but let's see him do it. This guy had 200 touches one time in college, right? So can he do it at the NFL level without getting hurt? It's a little bit of a question to me. So I'm right at consensus. With most of the rookies, I'm ahead of consensus, though, like Fitz is, because I do think this is a great class, and people are kind of underrating it versus some of these great players that we already have in the league, but these guys could be really good.
Yeah, and then just to mention them, this is obvious to us, but not everybody is as in the weeds with this as we are. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, we still really like these guys for this year. Obviously, it's like very difficult to rank them in Dynasty because whether or not you want them is entirely dependent on if you are a contender or a rebuilder. If you are a rebuilder, Derrick Henry has no business being on your team. Sell him to a contender for probably a pretty decent asset in return if they're trying to win now. If you are win now, try to acquire these guys, or if you have him on their team, be very happy about it. They're definitely more valuable to you if you are trying to win this year. So just to mention them because they are such big names, it's almost like a placeholder. Like, this is not the correct ranking. If you are a rebuilder, they should be ranked much lower for you. If you are a contender, they should be ranked much higher for you. So just to mention them. Let's go to tier 4. We have Chuba Hubbard, RJ Harvey, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, Caleb Johnson, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, and Brian Robinson Jr. Obviously, it's kind of fun when talking about Dynasty to focus on the rookies, so I want to highlight those two as well. You guys, not by a wide margin, but are both above consensus on both RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson. Bogman, I'll start with you. Caleb Johnson is the guy who's ranked a little bit lower. He's RB23 in ECR. You have him RB20. As a Steelers guy, I know that you were really interested in the fit when they made that pick, and we've talked on the show about that fit in Arthur Smith's offense. Is this a ranking that, because the fit seems to be so good, would it surprise you, I guess is how I want to phrase the question, would it surprise you if, because the fit is so good, he comes out really strong in year one and has one of the better seasons of any rookie running back, non-Ashton Genty division, and therefore is ranked kind of a lot higher in ECR a year from now?
100%. That absolutely is within the realm of possibilities. And we've heard Debro talk about this a lot on Fantasy Pros, right? About how Najee had over 300 touches last year as a Jag for the Steelers. And Caleb Johnson comes in, you would assume, as a rookie, a little bit more juice than what Najee has shown the last couple seasons. But this offense in Pittsburgh is built to run the ball. This is what Arthur Smith does well. This is why he had Bijan in Atlanta. It's why he had Tyler Algier. He worked with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, right? Like, it's built around a good offensive line and a heavy running game. This is what Tomlin has wanted to run the last couple seasons. Ever since Roethlisberger's retired, it's let's get physical, let's roll people. They want to do what the Eagles have been doing. They want to do what the Ravens have been doing with a strong run game. And Caleb Johnson is here to be the lead of it. So I don't think for his rookie season you can count out Jaylen Warren, who's a very good running back, but probably closer to a guy like Henderson, like Bucky, probably a 200 to 250 touch guy, not a 300 touch guy. Caleb Johnson is that dude. He can carry a huge workload and do it. And Gainwell is in the mix as well. He's not a nothing. We saw him play a little bit for Philly last season, obviously behind one of the better running backs ever. So, I think all these guys are going to get mixed. But is it within the realm of possibility that Caleb Johnson gets 300 touches as a rookie and it pops off? Absolutely. It is 100% in the realm of possibility, which is why you have to be a little bit higher on these rookies like Fitz and I are, in my opinion.
Fitz, both RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson, they're kind of 1 and 2 amongst this tier in your rankings. They're RB17 and RB18 for you overall. Is there one that you think is more likely than the other to jump up a tier or two between now and a year from now? Or do you think it's pretty like even in terms of the odds of both of them doing that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, pretty even odds. I feel like Caleb might be a little safer. I feel like it wouldn't be a stretch for Caleb Johnson to score 10 touchdowns as a rookie because of exactly what Boggs was talking about. Like, this is just airdrop him into that Najee Harris role, and you get a basically new and improved version of Najee Harris, I feel like. And I kind of have the same take on Najee that Boggs had. Like, he's pretty average, all things, like well above average in terms of durability and availability, and give him credit for that, because that dude does take a licking and keep on ticking. But
that's it. That's his secret weapon, Fitzy. It's
Yep.
stamina. He's the same level of tired in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. So when he's in there in the fourth against guys that are getting gassed, he's awesome. But in the first, it looks like he doesn't know what he's doing.
And maybe the reason I think the ceiling is a little bit higher for RJ Harvey is his pass catching potential. And wherever Sean Payton has been, running backs have gotten a ton of targets. And wherever Broncos offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi has been, running backs have gotten a ton of targets. And Audric Estime is not going to catch a lot of passes for the Broncos. Maybe J.K. Dobbins has a bigger role than we're anticipating, but man, I feel like
he's never been a pass catcher.
Right. Not at Ohio State, really, not in the NFL. And I feel like RJ Harvey has more juice than, the multi-time injured J.K. Dobbins. And I don't know if Julio McLaughlin winds up like getting a lot of playing time for the Broncos. Plus, the Broncos are one of the best offensive lines in the league, which is something that maybe goes a little unheralded when there's been talk about RJ Harvey. And there has been a lot of talk. I feel like he's been one of like the 5 most frequently debated players on Twitter. When, we start like there are people on both sides of the RJ Harvey aisle, but I think I want to be on the pro side.
Me too. I mean, Dobbins just, he's just like 3 yards in a cloud of dust at this point. He can carry a big workload still. He's a decent running back. I put him kind of in the Najee category, though. Not extremely special.
He showed more than I thought he was going to last year. Like, I was pretty impressed.
Yes.
And happy for him that he was able to overcome everything he's been through physically. But
slapped our Kamani Vidal love.
Yes,
right
he
down.
did, man. We're not talking about him very much anymore these days.
Besides the rookies in this tier, it's mostly not just veterans, but somewhat boring veterans, at least the way they are kind of presented and discussed when people are talking about Dynasty. The last 2 names on that list, Tony Pollard and Brian Robinson, you guys are both not just lower than consensus, but well lower than consensus on both of those 2. What is it about those names, Fitz, that has you lower than consensus?
Tony Pollard had that really nice season in Dallas where he was getting sort of a partial workload. Like, he just hasn't shown that he can be the workhorse that we hoped he might be after he left Dallas. And like, I worry that Tyjae Spears might be better, quite honestly. So I just, it's getting late in Tony Pollard's career for him to ever live up to maybe what we were hoping he would be. And Brian Robinson Jr., I just like, he's a perfectly functional running back, but he's very not special. So I'm a little worried that like maybe Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could outplay him. I'm definitely thinking that, I know there have been some rumors that Austin Eckler could get released, but I don't know. Austin Eckler was actually pretty good on a per touch basis last year. So he's going to be a partial guy, albeit in an ascendant offense, but I don't think there's a super bright future for Brian Robinson.
Boggs, any kind of final thoughts on this tier, either those 2 or anybody else that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with like a B Rob and a Tony Pollard is that, are they going to be the guys that keep their team from drafting an outstanding running back that falls to them at a good value? And I don't think either one of those guys are. So I have them below this tier, and like you said, below consensus because of that. So they're fine. I like them for this season. I think they're good options to have on your bench or as a flex or whatever. Maybe you draft a JT, a injury prone type of player. You get these guys as high floor guys, but they're dodging bullets every single draft and offseason in terms of free agents. So not special.
By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, guys, tier 5, a big one. I will quickly run through these names. DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, James Conner, Tyrone Tracy, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Zach Charbonnet, Cam Skattebo, Trey Benson, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, and Bashal Tutin. That runs from running back 27 to running back 39. I know for the listeners, that was a lot of names there, so we'll jump around a bit here and kind of remind you of those names as we go through. Just initially, right off the bat, Bogman, anybody stand out to you as you definitely think this player is too high or too low in ECR?
I mean, everybody knows who I'm going to say here. It's Cam Skattebo, of course, is too low in this section. But it's funny because I have the way that I have it tiered out as well as I think I have pretty similar group. It's a little bit deeper than this. But yeah, man, Cam Skattebo, you know, I think this is a dude. And I was just on a show with Worm where he talked about breakouts and he picked Skattebo here and you know, asked me a couple times if it was going to be okay if he took Skattebo, even though I was on the show. But you know, the Giants went from Devin Singletary as the main guy to Tyrone Tracy as the main guy. Well, they drafted Skattebo because they obviously didn't see everything they liked from Tyrone Tracy, right? So this is a team with a lot of needs. You don't go reaching for a running back unless you feel like you need it, in my opinion. So I think Cam Skattebo is going to be the lead back by the end of the year pretty quickly here. I'm also higher than consensus on Pacheco. I think he gets a little bit left in the dust, and I'm not as high, so I'll reserve my comments about this guy, but I'm higher on Zach Charbonnet as well.
I was going to say, so Fitz, you are above consensus on Cam Skattebo, but he's the second highest player you have in this tier of the names I just listed in your rankings. Charbonnet is actually the highest, one spot ahead of Skattebo for you.
Yeah, Charbonnet has been really good whenever he's got an opportunity. Like he averaged 3.35 yards after contact per carry last year, forced 32 missed tackles on only 135 rushing attempts. And when Kenneth Walker was hurt, Charbonnet had a 2-touchdown game against Miami and another 2-touchdown game against Arizona. Charbonnet's been really good as a pass catcher, 75 catches over his first 2 seasons. And like, I don't know, he's cheaper than he should be in Dynasty because of his status as a backup to Kenneth Walker, who, by the way, has not been the most durable guy in the world. I'm bullish on the Seattle running game overall with Clint Kubiak and then Rick Dennison as this run game coordinator. And like the Kubiak-Dennison combination has been really good, dating back to Clint's dad, Gary, in Denver. Like it's just, this is a good system. A lot of outside zone. It's probably going to benefit Kenneth Walker, but man, like, does Kenneth Walker play more than 14 or 15 games? That's the issue. So eventually, like, Charbonnet is going to get a chance to be the lead guy somewhere. And
K-Walk's a free agent after this season.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Fitz, we know that the answer to this question would be Skattebo if it were Bogman. For you, and let's set aside Skattebo, you can mention him if he's the guy that you would pick, but to pick somebody else, who's the one name in this tier that you think has the best chance of being multiple tiers higher a year from now?
I mean, I'll say DeAndre Swift. Like if he can hold off, if Roschon doesn't get a big increase, if it doesn't turn out that Roschon Johnson is the new David Montgomery in Ben Johnson's offense, and if Kyle Monangai, who Bogman and I both like, isn't able to mount a challenge to DeAndre Swift's role, like DeAndre Swift is still pretty young. He catches passes. The Bears have dramatically upgraded the middle of their offensive line, which was a huge problem And I think we all expect the offense to look a lot better this year under Ben Johnson. So, like, wouldn't surprise me if Swift turned in a really good season and everyone kind of reassessed and said, you know what, he probably should be like a top 15, top 20 dynasty running back.
Bogman, does that sound plausible to you?
I think it does, and it would be just hilarious that now that we've all given up on DeAndre Swift, even I'm like, I was a big Swift guy, and I definitely did the overcorrection when he wasn't as good as I thought coming in. And maybe I'm having a little bit of that now, but it's like we've seen DeAndre Swift with Ben Johnson. Maybe things are a little bit better for him as a full-time lead back here, but we've seen it not work out before. So, but he's right. I mean, if this whole offense clicks, look at how this is the raising tide lifts all boats or whatever it is, where you add so much talent. DeAndre Swift could score a bunch of points just in touchdowns because they keep getting down at the one or whatever, So, yeah, I think he is a guy. I think Pacheco, it could be in that group as well. I think, the narrative about him was I didn't look the same when he came back. He wasn't 100% when he came back. We talked to Deepak Chona on the Sunday night show during the season about this when he broke his leg. And he said, look, he might be able to make it back this season, but he will not be right until next season. That was his immediate thought process on it. So I think we have a little bit of that when we're looking at Pacheco too. And I still have him as an RB3. I think the upside might be capped a little bit, but yeah, I think he's another guy that could fall into that group because, again, he's part of an awesome.
That's offense. A really good call. I mean, that dude came back from a fractured fibula in under 3 months. He could not have been playing at anything close to 100%, but people were obviously really disappointed he couldn't get his job back from Kareem Hunt. But, like, very plausible explanation why he couldn't.
I feel maybe a little more interested in Pacheco in redraft than Dynasty. I think I'm not sure if that's the correct approach to take, but I am very much in agreement with you guys. I think
that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Let me ask you something, Worm. Would you put Pacheco in this group with like B-Rob and who was the other one we were talking about that are just Pollard? Yeah. Like put Pacheco in there. How would you order that group?
I'd rather have Pacheco than this. I'd probably go Pacheco, Robinson, Pollard, but the easiest part of that ranking would be Pacheco at the top.
Yeah, that's how I have it too. So
same.
And that's
actually have Pollard.
I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for Pacheco.
I think Pacheco should be in the tier above, not like crazy high, but I think he should be in a higher tier than this. Is there anybody that stands out to you, Fitz, that is too highly ranked here that you would knock down a lot? I mean, you have Ramondre Stevenson as well below consensus. That feels like it's just the other side of the coin of your love of Travion Henderson, kind of a similar thing with Najee Harris and your love of Amarian Hampton. But is there anybody in general looking at this list that you just think we are way too high on as a consensus?
Yeah, I mean,
like the Chappelle show, Fitzy, the hater player haters ball is what the Ramondre Stevenson. You're crushing.
Well, yeah, Boggs. Okay, you can explain your enthusiasm. For me, it's that the Patriots just drafted his replacement. Like Travion Henderson is better and is going to play more than Ramondre. The fumbling thing, which got him in the doghouse when they had no one better to put in than Antonio Gibson behind him last year, and just like Ramondre's 27 now. Like, I feel like we had our moment with Ramondre. It passed. I loved him at the time. It was great to, have a couple years of cashing in on him, but like now is the time to cash out if you still can.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just don't have, I'm like, I think 3 or 4 spots ahead of consensus. I might have him as an RB3. I mean, it's just a dude that has had a lot of touches. We saw him have 279 touches before in a season, right? He was up to 240 last season. The fumbles, of course, did hurt, and they drafted his replacement. Like, I don't think he's long for New England, but I remember, look, we had James Conner as dead a few years ago, right? And he's had a little bit of a resurgence. So I just don't want to bury him. That's all. Like, if I were going to lower him, I would have him still within like 48, like, so as an RB4. So, but he's a low end RB3 to me. If you want to put him below that, that's fine. I have him at the top of a tier from RB33 to RB46. So just somewhere in the RB 3-4 range is where I want to put him, because he does, like, he's shown skill in the NFL. We know it's there. Is it deteriorating? Maybe. Was it an overreaction by the Patriots? Maybe. But the overreaction is the killer, right? Because Henderson's the guy now. And I believe that with you. I don't have him inside my top 10 like you do, but I do think he is a premium running back to own moving forward.
This month, if you want a chance to win a signed George Pickens Steelers jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now, drop a comment below on any video, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. Yes, that is a Steelers jersey for Pickens, not Cowboys. Don't get mad at us. It's what we have. It is vintage. Tier 6 here is a very large one. I know I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to read through the names quickly anyway. And like I said, we'll kind of jump around here. This goes from RB40 to RB56. Rashad White, Tajay Spears, Tank Bigsby, Javonte Williams, Jordan Mason, Ray Davis, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, Rico Dowdle, Isaac Guerrero, Jaden Blue, Dylan Sampson, Tyler Algier, Jonathan Brooks, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Neal. Just a whole lot of different directions you could go with this one. Bogman, where do you want to start? Who's the name that stands out most to you?
Man, I mean, I still have a lot of love for Blake Corum. I obviously am a big fan of Ray Davis as well. Let me ask you, Fitz, what do we do with Jacksonville? I think that's my biggest question when putting this together and kind of redoing my rankings and looking at ECR. What the hell is going on in Jacksonville? Because I still think Travis Etienne's the best running back, but Tootin was hand selected by this regime,
right,
and Bigsby led them last season.
As a quick reminder, Etienne RB32, Tootin RB39, and Bigsby RB42. So they're all within 11 spots of each other in Dynasty ECR.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts here, Fitz? Like, do you just avoid this kind of, or are you picking one?
So Bigsby was objectively like 10 times better a runner than Etienne was last year. Like Bigsby was near the league lead in rushing yards over expected per carry. Like he was phenomenal in that category, whereas Etienne was actually had a negative number in rushing yards over expected per carry. And Etienne got off to that blazing start in 2023 and then kind of backslid in the second half. Like he hasn't been good for a season and a half. So he's still young enough to maybe get it back. And I'm not sure why he has slid the way he has, because he was pretty dynamic when he came into the league. And, you know, we thought he was going to be a star. He looked like a star. So right now I'm just kind of hands off in ETN. I don't have him in any dynasty league, and I'm not really interested in acquiring him. And as impressive as Bigsby was last year, he is really capped because he has no pass catching upside. And that just kills him in PPR. Like you know, he's a guy you can throw in a flex in a pinch, but like he's not a guy you really want to have to start every week. You know, as a committee back with no pass catching upside. So Tootin is really the wild card here, and like how quickly he gets involved and what his touch upside is in year one. And then whether the Jaguars make any sort of attempt to bring ETN back, you'd figure probably not, since they went out and drafted Tootin. But yeah, I just like in redraft, I kind of want to take a shot at this backfield because they're all pretty cheap. And like
that's what I do. Like
Bigsby, they're all going like
RB 50 or 60, and I take.
They're going like between the 9th and 12th rounds, and if those guys don't pan out, you cut them, and like it's not going to hurt you. But in Dynasty, I just like I'm kind of staying away, other than the leagues where I got Tootin sort of like late second round in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's just it's tough to know where to go. But there's a lot of maybes here. Jalen Wright, maybe.
Well,
right? Maybe it works out. Maybe Javonte works in Dallas. Like there's a lot of maybes in this section.
Like it would not shock me. This is a real combustible tier. Like it would not shock me if there were like 2 or 3 guys from this tier who we had in our top 20 next year, because there is a lot of young talent here. Guys like Ray Davis, who maybe if he gets the opportunity winds up being like better than James Cook. Braylon Allen, who, you know, if Aaron Glenn is not pulling our leg about using multiple backs, I mean, another guy who's kind of capped because his limited pass catching upside, but like that dude is a like powerful runner. running behind this really improved Jets offensive line. You know, Boggs, you mentioned, like, I don't want to give up on Blake Corum yet either. I'm not as high on Jalen Wright as you are, but like Jordan Mason, another guy who like we saw what he could do early last season when Christian McCaffrey was out. Now he goes to the Vikings, who run a lot. They're going to run a lot of outside zone, and like that is where Jordan Mason thrives. And Aaron,
then they traded for him. They traded a draft.
They traded for him.
There were so many good RBs in this class too, and they traded for Mason.
Well, they didn't have many draft picks. That was part of it. But then they gave him a pretty nice contract extension too. So I think he's a big part of their plans. And you know, Aaron Jones is 30, so it just seems like Isaac Guerrero is another one. Maybe Jaden Blue is a bigger role than we're looking at. Like Dylan.
I was going to say, Fitz, you just mentioned a lot of young names, but there's 3 rookies in here too, which you are also ahead of consensus on in Blue, Sampson, and Neal. Sampson is probably my favorite of those 3 in terms of these kind of like later round rookies to go after, but I think you can make a compelling case for all 3 of them.
Yep. And it just stinks that Dylan Sampson went to Cleveland and they had already drafted Quinshon Judkins, because like I had him as my RB7, I think, in my rookie running back rankings, and just like the worst possible situation for Dylan Sampson. But like this dude is so electric, it wouldn't shock me if he sort of defied this this bad break he got as far as landing spot and still turned out to be pretty fantastic.
I agree, because if the opportunity is there, I think it's actually a good landing spot if he can find a way to get the opportunity. And there are some people who are a lot lower on Judkins in general as a prospect, some of the tackle breaking metrics that you see in college. I do still like Judkins, so I'm not trying to say that this is an opportunity to knock him, but I don't think it would be totally like jaw-dropping for Sampson to earn at least enough of a role in this offense, which will be run heavy, to be like maybe not fantasy viable as a rookie, but to be a really intriguing dynasty asset at the very least for a player that all 3 of us really liked in the pre-draft process.
2 other guys we should probably touch on real quickly. I mean, Tyjae Spears, who I feel like is really talented, and maybe with Cam Ward pumping some life into the Titans offense, maybe like this is the year we see something from Spears. Like all it would take would be a Pollard injury. You know, and I know Spears had the concussion issue, but like if he stays healthy, he's really intriguing. And what if Javonte is back to the Javonte we saw like when he first hit the NFL, and
another year removed from that brutal
injury, you know, and like remember how anxious we were to get like Melvin Gordon out of the way so Javonte could have that Denver backfield to himself. And that was when, you know, Melvin Gordon was still pretty effective, but like, man, Javonte was just such a load to try to bring down that first year, and like had some pass catching upside too. Like what if he is back to old Javonte in Dallas? Like that's,
I was going to bring this up, Fitz, and I want to get Bogman's opinion, because we talked about this a bit on a show with Erickson earlier in the week, Fitz. So that's why I want to hear what Bogman thinks too. But like, I think if he stays healthy, that Javonte Williams is going to be a top 24 running back this season if he plays, 16, 17 games. I don't know that means he's somebody that I would want to be like trying to acquire if I am a long-term kind of project of a dynasty roster, but I think he's an excellent buy if you are a contender, because I do think he'll be very helpful this year, barring some kind of season-ending injury, just because the opportunity, like Miles Sanders is washed. Jaden Blue is not the type of player. I think I like Blue, but he's not the type of player that thinks he's going to eat too much into Javonte. So I think Javonte is a great buy as long as your expectations are still more short-term than long-term, I think.
I think both the guys that you mentioned, Fitz, with Javonte and Tyjae Spears, they both get a audition year, right? That's basically what this is. It's, look, if you are good, we'll sign you to an extension and make you our guy. But if you suck, we'll go and, draft someone, sign. There's Ken Walker, James Cook. There's going to be some free agents in this class, right? So I think there's a lot of musical chairs, there's a lot of possible movements, but a lot of teams are just saying, hey, look, the running back position is so replaceable. So many running backs just got cut because of the new class coming in. We can go get a free agent. So we're just going to go with these guys and see if they work. And if they don't, we'll try somebody young. If that guy doesn't work, we'll figure this position out next year, because it is such plug and play at this point in the NFL. But, a top tier running back changes the look of your team. That's what just happened to the Eagles. You drop in Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the league, and they win the Super Bowl easily. too. I mean, they rolled down people's throats. So very important position here. Javonte and Tyjae Spears definitely do have opportunity. More Javonte than Spears. Obviously, Spears has to move past Pollard. Javonte just has to not get hurt. So big obstacles for both these guys, probably with their history, but they have shots for sure.
One last name I want to quickly just mention in this tier and really just kind of ask, because obviously it's not going to be relevant for this year. Is Jonathan Brooks being ranked outside the top 50 somebody that you're interested, if you are a rebuilding team, in saying, hey, like, let me take a flyer, and if he's back healthy a year from now, this is somebody that could look like a nice value? Or are you totally, completely done with Brooks, Fitz?
Got to be completely done. I think Boggs and I are both below consensus, and Boggs is a Texas Longhorns fan, and it's just the guy has had terrible luck. Tears the same ACL twice in the span of a calendar year. It's just, it's awful. And I took him as like a late first round pick in one league, and I'm just kind of holding the bag on him. And what am I going to do with it? Like, I'll offer him around, and I would take like a third round pick next year for him. It's sad, but like, I do not have high hopes for him rekindling his career after 2 devastating knee injuries.
I'm not going to sit here and talk crap about my Texas guys, but I have him 17 spots lower than where Fitzy currently has him. I'm completely out. I just don't think he recovers from this, and I hope he does. I hope I'm wrong. Would love to be wrong, but I expect him to be what Chase Brown is right now, right? Like a guy that can kind of handle the workload, a little bit underrated coming into the league because he only had the 1 year as a starter because he was behind Bijan, right? So like not a lot of people were looking at him after Bijan just came out, and he was incredible his last season at Texas. But I mean, just a devastating injury the first time he got a huge workload, and then another one. It just, I don't know how you can expect him to do anything at this point.
So let me ask you guys this then to wrap up today's conversation. Pick a name that we haven't mentioned today that's outside of these top 6 tiers that we're going to knock Jonathan Brooks out of here. Who are we replacing him with? Some of the early names, just in terms of the way you guys have it ranked, that are kind of not in this ECR top, 56 or whatever it is, the number that we have. 56 is right. So these top names: DJ Giddens, Jordan James, Isaiah Davis, Will Shipley, Taj Brooks, Jerome Ford, Jarquez Hunter, Kyle Monangai, Roshan Johnson, Audric Estime, Woody Marks, Trevor Etienne, Marshawn Lloyd's on there, Brashard Smith. Obviously a ton of rookies because of the depth and talent of this class. Some other, more veteran names in there as well. Who is the guy that, if we're knocking Brooks out of the top 6 tiers, that we're replacing him with, Bogman?
Giddens. Easy for me. And I think if you're rostering JT, you have Jonathan Taylor on your team, you need to go get DJ Giddens because, like Fitz said, he has had this ankle issue the last 3 years in a row, and he's missed 8 games because of it. DJ Giddens is finally someone for the Colts that can replace Taylor effectively. He's a very good running back, and I think it'd be smart to take a little bit off of Taylor and give it to Giddens during, the regular season to make him last a little bit longer. I hope that's the plan, but again, it's hard to take your best player off the field, and especially when that best player is the best by a wide margin on offense. And that's kind of what Taylor is for the Colts. So, but DJ Giddens is the guy right there next to him. He's a perfect handcuff. And if you're rostering JT, you need to get Giddens.
Fitz, same question.
All right. Can I cheat and give you 2 guys? Because they're basically in the exact same situation.
Yes.
So my first choice would be Jarquez Hunter. And he is, not only is he a backup right now, but he's sort of competing for that number 2 spot with another young player, in this case, Blake Corum. But awesome system. And if Jarquez Hunter could somehow find himself atop the heap in that backfield, like, he would instantly become incredibly valuable. And like, he was a really good player at Auburn. Really good player. Just ask our boy Josh at FantasyPros, who, big Auburn fan, big Jarquez Hunter advocate. So like, a lot of potential talent there, but obviously it's a messy situation for him as far as playing time. Very muddled. So that's going to disguise the value. And the guy who gets talked about less, but is in pretty much the exact same situation, is Jordan James of the 49ers. Like right now he's number 3 with Garendo being the number 2.
I love this call.
But like, he was a guy, I know all the film watchers were really high on him. Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler. I think he was a top 10 RB prospect for both of those guys in this draft. And, that Kyle Shanahan's system has just like anyone who gets plugged in there, massively valuable. Obviously Christian McCaffrey, but look at what Jordan Mason did early last year. Like he was a guy we were ranking every week in my weekly rankings was like top 5, just no brainer. Because that is such an effective.
Is Jordan James your handcuff over Garendo then?
See, that I don't know about. I mean, that's going to be a really interesting.
That's fair.
But like, the thing is, like, I didn't think Garendo was all that polished coming out of college, and I was real skeptical about him. But he like was actually a lot. Yeah, he was a lot better than I thought he was going to be. So like, that's going to be hard for Jordan James to wrest that number 2 job away from Garendo. But if he does, look out, man. Then you're just a Christian McCaffrey injury away from rolling Yahtzee with Jordan James.
I'll throw Isaiah Davis out there too, since Fitz got 2. I'm going to go ahead and take 2 also, like a spoiled brat. But yeah, Isaiah Davis is a guy that I really like coming out of college to the Jets. And we talked about how Breece Hall is a free agent after this season and how they want to mix more running back. So, you know, if Breece Hall is gone, then Allen and Davis are probably likely there. And we saw Davis have he had a game where he had more touches than Braylon Allen at the end of the season. So it's not like he's completely washed out of this picture. And it's for sure Braylon Allen getting a bunch of touches behind Breece Hall. I think they're both going to mix in, and Davis could easily push his way to the top.
If Debro are on the show and giving 2, it'd definitely be Marshawn Lloyd and Brashard Smith. So just to give him a shout for those names as well, 2 names that he likes a lot. Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. We got through a ton of names on this episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in to our Dynasty running back tiers and just general rankings through the top, like I said, 56, I think it was, through our 6 tiers on consensus, and then a couple names after that. For Fitz and Bogman, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.